Tom Hanks was signing autographs outside a Chicago movie theater when a little boy in a wheelchair approached him. The child looked up with eyes full of hope and whispered, "Mr. Tom, I have something important to tell you." What the boy said next would haunt Tom for weeks, inspire the most emotional performance of his career, and prove that some friendships transcend fame, fortune, and even death itself. November 3rd, 2004. Tom was in Chicago promoting The Polar Express, his latest film about believing in magic and the power of wonder. The premiere at the historic Chicago Theater had gone perfectly per standing ovations, glowing reviews, and hundreds of fans lining the streets hoping for a glimpse of their favorite actor. As Tom made his way through the crowd signing playbills and taking photos, he noticed something that made him pause. Most of the fans were adults or teenagers, but sitting quietly at the edge of the chaos was a young boy, maybe 8 years old, in a small wheelchair. He wasn't pushing forward or calling out like the others. He was just waiting, watching Tom with an expression of patient hope that somehow stood out in the sea of excited faces. Tom excused himself from the group of fans he was with and walked directly to the boy. Up close, he could see that the child was thin, pale, with the kind of fragile appearance that comes from serious illness. But his eyes were bright, intelligent, and filled with something Tom couldn't quite identify. "Hi there," Tom said, kneeling down to the boy's eye level. "What's your name?" "Michael," the boy replied quietly. "Michael Chen. I'm 8 years old and I'm your biggest fan in the whole world." But what Michael said next would change everything. Tom smiled and reached into his jacket for a pen. "Well, Michael, it's very nice to meet you. Would you like me to sign something for you?" Michael shook his head. "Mr. Tom, I don't want an autograph. I want to tell you something important." There was something in the boy's serious tone that made Tom focus completely on him, despite the crowd of people still calling his name behind them. "I've seen all your movies," Michael continued. "Forrest Gump is my favorite because Forrest never gave up even when things were hard. And I know a lot about not giving up because I have cancer." Tom felt his heart clench. This beautiful, brave little boy was facing something no child should ever have to face. "The doctors say I probably have about 6 months left, maybe less. But that's okay because I wanted to meet you before I can't anymore." The noise of the crowd seemed to fade away. Tom found himself looking into the eyes of this remarkable child who was discussing his own mortality with a calm acceptance that most adults never achieve. "Michael, I'm so sorry, that must be very scary for you." "Sometimes it is. But mostly I just think about the good things, like meeting you tonight." Tom made a decision that would change both of their lives. "Michael, are you here with your parents?" Michael pointed to a couple standing about 20 feet away, clearly trying to give their son this special moment while fighting back tears of their own. "Would it be okay if I met them?" Michael's face lit up. "Really, you want to meet my mom and dad?" "Of course I do." Tom stood up and began pushing Michael's wheelchair toward his parents, ignoring the protests from his publicist and the disappointed calls from other fans. Some things were more important than crowd management. David and Lin Chen looked exactly like what they were, parents carrying an unbearable burden with as much grace as they could muster. When Tom introduced himself, Lin began crying immediately. "Mr. Hanks, thank you so much for taking time with Michael. He's been talking about this premiere for months." "Mrs. Chen, your son is remarkable. How long has he been sick?" David answered, his voice tight with control. "Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Diagnosed 18 months ago. We've tried everything. Chemotherapy, experimental treatments, clinical trials. Nothing's working anymore." But Tom was about to make an offer that would seem impossible. Tom looked down at Michael, who was listening to his parents discuss his condition with the same calm acceptance he'd shown earlier. "Michael, what's your favorite thing to do? Besides watching movies, I mean." "I like to write stories about adventures and brave people and happy endings." "What kind of adventures?" Michael's eyes brightened. "All kinds. Space adventures, pirate adventures, cowboy adventures. I write them for the other kids in the hospital. The ones who are too sick to watch movies." Tom felt something shift inside him. Here was a dying child who was spending his remaining time trying to bring joy to other dying children. "Michael, how would you like to visit me in Los Angeles? You could see how movies are made, meet some other actors, maybe even help me with a story I'm working on." Michael's eyes went wide. "Really? You mean it?" Lin Chen looked shocked. "Mr. Hanks, that's incredibly generous, but we couldn't possibly." "Mrs. Chen, with respect, this isn't about money or inconvenience. Your son just taught me something about courage that I've been trying to understand my whole career. I'd be honored to have him as my guest." 3 weeks later, Michael Chen arrived in Los Angeles. Tom had arranged for Michael and his parents to stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel. More importantly, he had cleared his schedule for the entire week. No meetings, no script readings, no interviews. Just time with a remarkable 8-year-old who was determined to make his last months count. The first day, Tom took Michael to the set of his next film, where the boy watched in fascination as crews built elaborate sets and actors transformed into their characters. But what amazed the cast and crew wasn't Michael's excitement about the movie magic, it was his wisdom, his kindness and his complete lack of self-pity. "Mr. Tom," Michael said during lunch, "do you ever get scared when you're acting?" "Sometimes." "Why do you ask?" "Because I get scared sometimes about being sick. But then I remember that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing important things even when you're scared." Tom realized that this 8-year-old understood something about courage that most adults never learn. But Michael had a secret plan he hadn't told Tom about. On the third day of the visit, Michael asked Tom if he could share something special with him. "I wrote a story for you, Mr. Tom. It's about a man who helps children who are sick. He can't cure them, but he makes them feel brave and important." Michael pulled a handwritten notebook from his backpack. The pages were filled with a child's careful handwriting, telling the story of Captain Hope, a man who visited sick children in hospitals and reminded them that their lives mattered, that their stories were worth telling. Tom read the story with growing amazement. It wasn't just touching myth, it was genuinely good, with real insight into human nature and the power of compassion. "Michael, this is incredible. You're a real writer. Do you think maybe it could be a movie someday?" Tom looked at this brave little boy, who was spending his precious remaining time creating stories to inspire other children facing death. "Michael, I don't think it could be a movie. I know it's going to be a movie." Tom made a promise that would take years to fulfill. "Michael, I want to make Captain Hope into a real film. And when I do, I want to dedicate it to you. Would that be okay?" Michael's smile was brighter than any spotlight Tom had ever stood under. "Really? A real movie about Captain Hope? A real movie? I promise." But as the week went on, Tom could see that Michael was getting weaker. The excitement and activity were taking a toll on his fragile body. On their last evening together, Michael asked Tom to sit with him on the hotel balcony. "Mr. Tom, I need to tell you something important." "What's that, buddy?" "I'm not going to get to see the Captain Hope movie, am I?" Tom felt his throat tighten. "Michael, it's okay. I know I probably won't. But I want you to know that meeting you this week has been the best thing that ever happened to me. And I want you to promise me something." Michael's final request would echo in Tom's heart forever. "When you make Captain Hope, I want you to tell all the kids who see it that being sick doesn't make them less important. That their stories matter. That even if they can't grow up to be famous like you, they can still be heroes right now, right where they are." Tom could barely speak through his tears. "I promise. Michael, I promise." Michael nodded, satisfied. "Good. And Mr. Tom, thank you for making me feel like my story matters." The next morning, the Chen family flew back to Chicago. Tom hugged Michael goodbye at the airport, both of them knowing it would probably be their last time together. Michael Chen died 6 weeks later, on Christmas morning 2004. Tom was in New York with his family when David Chen called with the news. Michael had passed peacefully in his sleep, with his parents holding his hands and his notebook of stories on the bedside table. Tom couldn't speak for several minutes after hanging up the phone. Rita found him in their hotel room, crying harder than she'd ever seen him cry. "He was 8 years old," Tom whispered. 8 years old, and he had more wisdom and courage than most people I know. The funeral was held in Chicago. Tom flew there immediately, despite his family's Christmas plans. He stood in a small church filled with other families from the children's cancer ward, listening to story after story about how Michael had brightened the darkest moments of their children's lives with his stories and his smile. But Tom's promise to Michael was just beginning. Development on Captain Hope started immediately. Tom assembled the best writers, directors, and producers in Hollywood. But more importantly, he insisted that every decision be guided by Michael's vision. A story about finding hope in impossible circumstances, and recognizing the heroism in ordinary children facing extraordinary challenges. The film took 3 years to complete. Tom starred as Captain Hope, a character inspired by all the doctors, nurses, and volunteers who dedicate their lives to helping sick children. But the real stars were the children themselves. Some of them actual young cancer patients who wanted to act in Michael's movie. Captain Hope was released in December 2007, exactly 3 years after Michael's death. The film was dedicated to Michael Chen and all the children who teach us what courage really means. The premiere was held at the same Chicago theater where Tom had met Michael. David and Lynn Chen attended the premiere, along with dozens of families from the children's cancer ward where Michael had been treated. During the film, there wasn't a dry eye in the theater. After the screening, Tom addressed the audience. 3 years ago, I met a little boy outside this theater who taught me that real heroism isn't about being famous or successful. It's about bringing light to dark places, about telling stories that matter, about making other people feel less alone. Michael Chen was 8 years old, and he was the bravest person I've ever known. Captain Hope became more than just a movie. The film grossed over $200 million worldwide, with all profits donated to pediatric cancer research. More importantly, it inspired the creation of the Michael Chen Foundation, which provides support to families of children with serious illnesses. The foundation has helped over 5,000 families, funded breakthrough cancer research, and created programs that bring storytelling and creative arts to children's hospitals around the world. Every year on Christmas morning, Tom honors Michael's memory. Tom visits children's hospitals, not for publicity but as a private tribute to the boy who changed his life. He brings books, tells stories, and reminds sick children that their lives have meaning and their stories matter. Hospital staff say that Tom has a special gift with the children. He listens to them with the same attention he gave Michael, treating each child as if their thoughts and dreams are the most important things in the world. When asked about Michael Chen, Tom always says the same thing: "People think I did something special for Michael by bringing him to Hollywood. But the truth is, Michael did something special for me. He showed me what my career was really for, not just to entertain people but to remind them that every life has value, every story deserves to be told, and even in our darkest moments, there's always room for hope." The legacy of that November evening continues today. Captain Hope spawned 2 sequels and a television series, all continuing Michael's message of courage and hope. But the real impact is measured in the thousands of children who've been helped by the foundation, the families who've found support in their darkest hours, and the countless people who've been reminded that heroism comes in all sizes. Michael Chen lived only 8 years, but his influence has lasted decades. His story proves that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most powerful messages, and that true greatness isn't measured by how long you live, but by how much love you leave behind.